Good evening, everyone. How's everyone feeling tonight? It's a little loud. Already a heckler in the fifth row. Welcome to the 2015 AIPAC Policy Conference Havdallah kickoff event. Yeah. My name is Joel Chasnoff. I will be your host this evening. Right now, I would like to welcome to the stage from the Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center in Florida. He brought his own fan club, Rabbi Jonathan Berkun.
So, keeping up with the theme, there's an old joke about a kid who comes home from Jewish summer camp. It's Saturday night and his parents ask him if he wants to do Havdallah. After all, he did it every week at camp. But we can't do Havdallah, the kid protests. And why not, his parents ask. Because we don't have a lake, says the kid. Truth is, you don't need a lake to do Havdallah. All you need is wine, spices, a braided candle, and for it to be Saturday night with at least 3 stars in the sky. The word Havdallah means to separate, to divide, or to distinguish. And in this brief ritual, we separate the holy day of rest, Shabbat, from the 6 working days of the week. Just as we welcome Shabbat on Friday night with wine, so too do we bid farewell to Shabbat with wine. Just as we began Shabbat with the lighting of 2 or more candles, so too do we end Shabbat with the lighting of 2 or more candles. Only this time, the candle is braided together, in part to symbolize the unity and fellowship that we experience when we celebrate Shabbat together with family, friends, and community. The blessing for smelling sweet spice, however, is unique to the Havdallah ritual. Some use cloves or bay leaves. We should have cinnamon sticks for about every 5 people here for this blessing tonight. One of the reasons we use fragrant spice on Havdallah is because on Shabbat, our tradition teaches that we are blessed with an additional soul. We have enjoyed the sweet spirit of Shabbat. And by inhaling sweet spice, we are hoping that this spirit will linger with us a bit longer during the days of the coming week. In some ways, that is the challenge we all face tonight as pro-Israel activists. Starting tomorrow, we will drink from the cup of the pro-Israel movement. We will be educated, inspired, and uplifted. Strengthened and encouraged by our massive numbers, we will take our message to Capitol Hill and remind our nation's lawmakers of the importance of the U.S.-Israel relationship. But on Tuesday afternoon, folks, we all go home. No more speeches, no more sessions. The crowds will disperse and the energy will dissipate, and it will then be up to us to carry the spirit of this conference when we leave and continue at home the important local work of strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship, just as we don't need a lake in order to do Havdallah. We don't have to be in Washington in order to passionately advocate for peace and security for the state of Israel. If we can hold on to the sweet spice of Shabbat during the 6 days of the coming week, then we too can hold on to the spirit of this policy conference in the year that lies ahead. Shabbat may be over, but the spirit remains. And when 16,000 of us leave this place 3 days from now, let us take what we have learned. Let us use what we have seen. Let us capitalize on the contacts we have made so that we can work even harder on behalf of the U.S.-Israel relationship. So now I'd like to invite you to please rise. Put your arms around your neighbor, your arms around each other. We don't need a lake to do Havdallah, we have each other. Let's join in this beautiful ritual farewell of Shabbat. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimheira veyamenu, Yavo Eleinu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David. Join with me. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi. הנה אל ישועתי אפתח ולא אפחד, כי עוזי וזמרת יד אדוני ויהי לי ישועה, ושפתם מים בששון ממענה הישועה. לאדוני הישועה, לעמך ברכתך סלע. אדוני צבאות עמנו, משגב לנו אלוהי יעקב סלע. אדוני צבאות, אשרי אדם בוטח בך. אדוני הושיע מלך יעננו ביום קוראנו. מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן, בורא פרי הגפן, בורא פרי הגפן. La 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 la, everybody. La 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 la. Take the spices. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Borei minei v'samim, everybody. Borei minei v'samim. Borei minei v'samim. La 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 la. Together. La 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 la. Over the candle. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Borei meorei ha'esh. Borei meorei ha'esh. Borei meorei ha'esh. La 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 la. המבדיל בין קודש לכל בין אור לחושך, בין ישראל לעמים, בין יום השביעי לששת ימי המעשה. ברוך אתה אדוני. המבדיל בין קודש לכל, המבדיל בין קודש לכל. La 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 la. Together. La 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 חטאותינו הוא ימחול. חטאותינו הוא ימחול. Keep your arms around each other. זרענו וחספנו. ירבה ירבה כחול. Eliyahu Hanavi, everybody. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, bimhera v'yameinu yavo eleinu im Mashiach ben David, im Mashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, 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 Shavua Tov. Yesh od shisha yamim ad Shabbat, Shabbat, 6 more days till Shabbat. Od shisha yamim ad Shabbat. Yesh od shisha yamim ad Shabbat, Shabbat. So let's make them good days. Az naseh otam tovim. Shavua Tov. Join with me, everybody. Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. Turn to your neighbor, wish them a Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov, everyone, and have an amazing conference. Please be seated.
How about some applause for Rabbi Jonathan Berkun, everyone? I have been notified that we have just set the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest underground Havdallah ever in a nation's capital city. How about that? Well, it is wonderful to be your host tonight, and as I'm looking out at this crowd during this Havdallah, what struck me is how beautiful it is that so many different types of people can come together under one roof. And I think that's what Israel does, is it brings all different types of people together. We have people here tonight who are not even Jewish. So let's give some applause to them, people who are not Jewish. Thank you. It is wonderful to have you. My own brother-in-law is not Jewish, so I know what it's like to have family who are normal. Thank you for being here, people who are not Jewish. And Jews, how rare is this for a group of Jews to come together from so many backgrounds? Because if you're not Jewish, you might not understand that here's what we Jews usually do. We divide ourselves up into smaller and smaller groups so that we'll have something to bicker about. It's very rare that we come together. We have, I'll just run through the groups very quickly. We have the Orthodox. They're the ones who know all the rules, but they also know how to get around all the rules. About 10 years ago, I moved to Riverdale, New York. I grew up a nice conservative Jew, but I moved into an apartment that was completely Orthodox. I was the only person in my apartment building who was not Orthodox. So even though I was a good conservative Jew, I became the Shabbos Goy for my entire apartment building. And if you don't know what that is, a Shabbos Goy is someone who pushes elevator buttons on the Sabbath or turns on the lights, so they won't go to hell. I will. Much better that way. But it's very tricky, because when you're a Shabbos Goy, you're actually not allowed to be asked what to do, because that's breaking the law. Instead, you have to imply it. through a secret code. Like one Saturday I was in the elevator. Old Jewish woman got in. Now, she couldn't tell me which floor to push, so instead she said, you know, my grandson's having a birthday tomorrow. I said, really? How old is he? She said, 5. You get it? I'm like, okay, 5th floor, happy birthday. So later on, I'm coming down. She gets in the elevator again. She says, you know, my granddaughter's having a birthday too. And I'm like, how old is she? And she's like, lobby. So you can never be sure. And then we have Reform Jews. Reform Jews. I'm sure we have many Reform Jews here tonight. They're the ones who sort of have their own rules. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Reform temple. They are beautiful with ornate architecture and pillars and beautiful artwork. And it's not that they have more money than Orthodox Jews. It's just that they have that extra day to work. So that is sort of the explanation. Then we have conservative Jews. I'm a conservative Jew. Anyone know what the conservative movement stands for? Anyone? No, seriously, does anyone know what the conservative movement stands for? We have no idea. We are the confused movement. We believe that a woman is obligated to wear a tallis if she wants to. That is what we believe. We believe that 2 men are allowed to be in a loving relationship and even to get married as long as they're not gay. That is what we believe in the conservative movement. Of course, we have Reconstructionist Jews. We have some Reconstructionist Jews here tonight. They're outside speaking with the trees right now. And of course, we have Chabad. Do we have any Chabad with us? We do. That's amazing. Chabad. I thought you'd be at home giving birth. So that is, because that's what you do in Chabad on a Saturday night. You stay home and have a Mendy. That is in the bylaws. And of course, we have Israelis. Make some noise, Israelis. Do we have any Israelis in the audience? Wow. Now, I don't know, as an American Jew who grew up in Chicago, I don't know if Israelis are fully aware of how much we admire them and work for them. For me, being at something like this, it reminds me of when I really first fell in love with Israel. It was the teen tour, and that's how it is for a lot of Americans. They go when they're 17 years old to Israel. They fall in love with Israel, but also I fell in love with Israelis. Because what's the first thing you notice when you get off the plane? How beautiful the Israelis are. The women are tan and fit, and the men are these hunks with muscles and crew cuts. And it's so odd, because they've got the same roots as we do, right? Eastern Europe, Poland, Germany, except they look like supermodels. And we look like Jews. How did that happen? But we love them. We love Israelis because we fall in love with how casual and laid back Israelis are. There's so much going on in that country. The economy is up and down. There's terrorism. There's political issues. And yet they're the most relaxed people on earth. They don't dress up for anything. You ever go to synagogue with an Israeli? It's like, oh, it is Shabbat? Beseder, I'll wear a belt. Okay. Yom Kippur, pants with the belt. Beseder. And socks with my flip-flopping to show I'm holy. But see, I have these experiences here and there that remind me why we need a strong Jewish state called Israel. And I had one of these experiences yesterday. I flew here from New York, and I got stopped in the airport. I got pulled out by the TSA because apparently if you're male and flying alone out of LaGuardia, they think you're suspicious, so they patted me down. But then it got more embarrassing. They opened my bag, and they took out my tefillin. Because I'm a conservative Jew, I wear tefillin every day that I feel like it. And they opened my bag, they took out my tefillin, and how do you even begin to explain tefillin to TSA security guards? Where does that conversation even start? How do you explain 8-foot-long leather straps to people who believe in moral values? They asked me, do you use this in the bedroom? And I said, only if I can't find 9 other men. And that is not the answer you want to give. That never sounds right. They're panicking. You mean older men, mature? I'm like, yeah, at least 13 years old. There's nothing to worry about. But that's what I love about Israel. I don't have to explain these things that I do. Keeping kosher. I have kept kosher since I was a baby. I have never not kept kosher. It makes perfect sense to me. And in Israel, you can keep kosher. You don't have to explain it. People know what it means. Have you ever tried to explain in America keeping kosher to some? You sound like a moron, right? A Friday morning, it's 6 in the morning when I flew here, the stewardess is serving a breakfast bagel. Now, I'm a Jew at 6 in the morning. What could be better than a bagel? But just to be on the safe side, I said, what's on the bagel? She said, salami and cheese. I said, I'm not allowed to eat that. I'll pass. So the woman next to me said, oh, are you vegetarian? Now, the correct answer to this question is yes. We all learn in Gan Yeladim nursery school, never explain kosher, just say you like animals, ends the conversation. But it's early. I'm not thinking, accidentally I said, well, actually, no, I'm kosher. Big mistake. Because you know what the next thing out of her mouth was? I've always wondered, what's kosher? And I'm like, damn. Basically, you don't eat milk with meat. She's like, why not? I'm like, I don't know. You just don't. She said, is there a law? I said, well, it's really confusing. She said, is it in your Bible? I said, fine. You don't want to know why? It's because you don't want to boil a calf in its mother's milk. She's like, what the hell do you do to your veal? That is disgusting. Veal ale. I said, well, we don't actually do that, but it's an idea of separation from the same life form keeps you holy. No beef with milk. She said, oh, I get it. But you do eat chicken with milk. I said, no, we don't do that either. She said, why not? I said, because you might think the chicken is beef. I said, what? So I explained, well, you could be eating what you think is chicken, but it turns out it's actually beef, and it could be the calf and the mother's milk. So to be on the safe side, if it was ever living, you don't eat it with milk. She said, oh, I get it. So that means you don't eat fish with milk. I'm like, no, we eat fish with milk. She's like, well, what if you think the fish is beef? And I'm like, who thinks fish is beef? You ever seen cow? You ever seen lox? They look nothing like each other. And it's so expensive. Do you ever see a commercial for food that isn't kosher and you just get jealous at how cheap that lifestyle would be? Introducing the Kentucky Fried Chicken Family Bucket. You get 36 wings, 18 thighs, 24 legs, 12 dozen biscuits, and a bottle of Coke for just $2.99. You ever go to a kosher deli? Yeah, I'll have a corned beef sandwich. That's $84. 90 with bread. What'll it be? A lot of Jews make up their own rules for keeping kosher. That's why, because it's so complicated, right? We've got that friend who's not Jewish. They have a barbecue on the 4th of July. They make hamburgers for everyone else, but for you, they make a veggie burger. Because you're kosher. What do you say? Oh, that's okay. I don't need to eat kosher at your house. Blows their mind that we've got home rules and away rules. So now you've got to explain. There are just certain things I would never do in my own home. For example, I would never commit adultery in my own home. But if you were out of town and your wife were lonely, we do it on separate dishes. That's all I'm saying. We've got our rules. But what's crazy is, after all my years, by the way, I went to Jewish day school for 9 years. And I went to, thank you very much. I went to Solomon Schechter for 7 years. Cool. Then I switched to an Orthodox Jewish day school in Chicago called Hillel Torah, and my parents wanted me to learn Mishnah and Talmud, which I did, but for me, the highlight was the sports. They had basketball at Hillel Torah. I don't want to brag. You ready for this? I was the starting center. That wasn't even the joke. Thank you very much. Can I tell you, it is so much pressure when you are on a Jewish day school basketball team, because you are not just playing for your school, you are playing for the entire Jewish people. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are on the sidelines rooting for you. And what made it worse is they put us in the Catholic League. But because there weren't enough Jewish schools to make a Jewish sports conference, so instead they took all the little kids who believe in God, let them fight it out for themselves. So every game it was Hillel Torah versus St. Mary's and St. Nick's and St. Peter. And at that point, it's no longer a game. It's a holy war. It's the Old Testament versus the New Testament. It's Hashem versus the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. That's unfair. That's 3-on-1. We can't take that defense. We had the cheerleaders. You do not know the meaning of the word voluptuous till you have seen a squad of Orthodox Jewish cheerleaders coming out at halftime, the Hillel Lions say, hello from Rivka, Malka Chaya. Always that one immigrant girl from Russia, Svetlana, wearing denim skirts that came down to their ankles, threw the girl up in the air. Oop, can't catch her. Don't touch women. Sorry about that. But do you know why I went to Jewish day school? Simple reason, a very Jewish reason. My parents read a study. And apparently, because we Jews, we love studies, right? There are 4 things, according to studies, that will keep your child with a strong Jewish identity in America. Number 1, day school. Number 2, Israel trips. 3, youth group. And the 4th, anyone know what the 4th magical tool? Camp. That's right. Who'd have thought that 1 week at only $6,000 a day? I love Jewish camps. I do think we need to improve the names to our camps. We have such wimpy names. Anyone here go to camp in the first section? Yeah, what are some of the Jewish camps that you guys went to? Shai, right? Herzl, someone said. Mosheva. Masa. Ramah. They're like dominoes, a chain all over the country. Habonim. You know where non-Jewish kids go to camp? Camp Arrowhead. Camp Eagle Feather. Camp Strangle a Bear. Rawr. I went to Machane Ethel Rosenzweig for 3 summers. I knit an Afghan and a yarmulke. That was my project. Actually, it was a yarmulke that turned into a blanket. That's how bored I was at Jewish camp. It's so intimidating because my best friend came home from Boy Scout camp. He had great stories. Yeah, we went horseback riding. I'm like, cool, I davened. That was my summer. You didn't learn to jet ski? No, I learned trope. That was my $8 million August. But now, my kids are in Jewish day school, and they are doing the same ridiculous things that I did. You would think we would evolve, but they're doing the same things I did when I was in Jewish day school, like fundraising. Do you know when fundraising begins when you go to Jewish day school? Kindergarten. Age 5, when your school makes you sell the nastiest kosher for Passover candy to raise money for your school. Does anyone know the name of the company that makes this candy? Barton's. How sad is that you know the answer to that question? If you ask a room full of people who aren't Jewish, what is the grossest candy you've ever eaten? You know what they'll say? I don't know. I don't eat gross candy. You ask a room full of Jews, oh, Barton's, of course. It's disgusting. We order it every year. Barton's candy made in Brooklyn, New York, in the same factory on Avenue J since 1936. Last health inspection, 1935. It is truly. And it's one thing to sell this door to door to your Bubby and Zadie. They'll buy a box, right? Your parents will buy a box. My mom wanted me to sell more than anybody in my class. So she made me go around my entire neighborhood. Jewish, Christian, Muslim, didn't matter. She wanted me to sell Barton's candy. You know how embarrassing that is? Trying to push Barton's candy on people who don't even need it. They were always so nice. I'd ring the bell. Hello. She's like, hi, little boy. I'm like, hi. I'm selling candy to raise money for my school. She's like, oh, well, I'd be happy to help out. I bought Girl Scout cookies last week. How much is it? I'm like, $40. $40. What do I get for $40? I said, a box of bark. You mean like tree bark? I said, exactly. Except it's dipped in chocolate. She said, you have anything cheaper? I said, well, you're in luck. Because for $36, you can get a can with 8 macaroons. What in the name of the Lord is a macaroon? I'm like, oh, it's really good. It's like a big Hershey's Kiss, except it's dipped in honey and then rolled in sawdust and glass, and sprinkled with rat poison. It's how we celebrate freedom. But I do that every year. My mom was a school teacher, and every year she would invite a fellow teacher from her school who was not Jewish to our Passover Seder to teach them about slavery, to freedom. Has anyone ever done that? Had someone who's not Jewish to your Passover Seder? Yeah? How do they like it? They love it. People, let me tell you, people who aren't Jewish love the Passover Seder more than Jewish people do. You know why? Because if you're not Jewish, you know when Passover ends? After the Seder. That's freedom. What do? Who knows 87? Oh, I know 87. People who aren't Jewish, they love the Seder. They love the wine and the 4 questions and the 4 children, each with a story. The only time it gets awkward is when? After the meal, right? Because what do they say? Wow, that was surprisingly good. Where's dessert? You're like, well, you got to go look for that. They get excited, their ears perk up. Look for it. Wow, it must be really delicious if I'm looking for it. You're like, oh yes. Imagine a saltine blown up 10 times its normal size with no salt. And it constipates you till Labor Day. It's under the sofa covered in puppy hair. Go find it, I'll give you a nickel. After Yontif, which is Yiddish for never. Are you guys having a good time so far tonight? Are you enjoying yourselves? Again, my name is Joel Chasnoff. I am a comedian in New York City. I will be back Monday night to host the concert with Matisyahu, David Broza, and Rita. Right now, I would like to bring back our wonderful musician, and I'm going to read her short bio just to make sure I get everything exactly right. Israeli singer Rita rose to fame in the 1980s, and she has been a musical sensation in Israel for well over 25 years. She's been a chart-topping musician and singer. She has millions of fans in Israel and across the world. Her most recent album, My Joys, is largely in Farsi, and tonight she's going to gain a few more thousand fans by performing in front of all of you. Please join me in welcoming one of Israel's most beloved singers, Ms. Rita Yahan-Farouz. Rita, everyone!
Good evening, שבוע טוב. ערב כחול עמוק, תולה גיל לעשות קצת רושם, ומעשן תפרחת, קטורת של הזדרכת, ומרחש בנחש, אולי הפעם, אולי הפעם. כחול העצב, כמה עמוק, אלוהים יודע. למה שלא תפתיע, חד וחלק בפתח, כמשחרר לטרף, לראות עוד פעם, לראות עוד פעם. כל הכחול העצב, כל העמוק עם קצב, כי בא לי בזאת הפעם ליפול על חרב, למות עליך, למות, למות עליך, לזכר ערב שלא יחזור. ערב כחול עמוק, תולה גיל בצורת ירח, רק תעמוד בפתח, בלי הודעה מוקדמת, כמשחרר לטרף, לראות עוד פעם, לראות עוד פעם. כל הכחול העצב, כל עמוק עם קצב, כי בא לי בזאת הפעם ליפול על חרב, למות עליך, למות, למות עליך. שלא יחזור. אבי אבליה זאת הפעם למות עליך, למות עליך, לזכר שלא יחזור, כי בא לי בזאת הפעם, למות עליך, למות עליך, לזכר למות עליך. שבוע טוב. Good evening. Whoever knows the songs, you can sing with me, sing along with me. יש פה כאלו שיודעים עברית, מכירים את השירים. יום אחד זה יקרה, בלי שנרגיש משהו ישתנה, משהו ייגע בנו, משהו יירגע בנו, ולא יהיה ממה לחשוש. וזה יבוא כמו כף חרוט על כף יד, זה יבוא בטוח בעצמו, כאילו היה שם תמיד וחיכה שנבחין בו. וזה יבוא, אתה תראה, הידיים הקפוצות יתאחו, והלב השומר לא להיפגע, יפעם בקצב רגיל. זה יבוא כמו שהטבע רגיל, להיות שלם עם עצמו. יום אחד זה יקרה, בלי שנרגיש משהו ישתנה, משהו ייגע בנו, משהו יירגע בנו, ולא יהיה ממה לחשוש. וזה יבוא כמו כף חרוט על כף יד, זה יבוא בטוח בעצמו, כאילו היה שם תמיד וחיכה שנבחין בו. וזה יבוא, אתה תראה, הידיים הקפוצות יתאחו, והלב השומר לא ייפגע, יפעם בקצב רגיל. זה יבוא כמו שהטבע רגיל, אתה תראה, הידיים הקפוצות יתאחו, והלב השומר לא להיפגע, יפעם בקצב רגיל. זה יבוא כמו שהטבע רגיל, להיות שלם עם עצמו. וזה יבוא, אתה תראה, הקבוצות יתאחו, והלב השומר לא ייפגע, יפעם בקצב רגיל. זה יבוא כמו שהטבע רגיל, אתה תראה, הידיים הקפוצות יתאחו, והלב השומר לא ייפגע, יפעם בקצב רגיל. זה יבוא כמו שהטבע רגיל, אתה תראה, הידיים הקפוצות יתאחו, והלב השומר לא להיפגע, יפעם בקצב רגיל זה יבוא כמו שהטבע רגיל להיות שלם עם עצמו. וזה יבוא, אתה הרי יודע, לא הכל יטלטל אותנו ולא הכל יקל, ומה שיפתח לנו מחכה. On behalf of all Israelis, I would like to dedicate the next song to you, to all the people who love Israel and support us. Thank you very much for everything. צלול קיים בריח אורנים, נישא עם רוח הבאים, עם כל פעמונים, ובתרדמת אילן ואבן, שבויה בחלומה, העיר אשר בדד יושבת ובליבה חומה, ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושלום, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. דברי היום לשיר לך ולך לקשור כתרים, קטונתי מצעיר בנך ומאחור המשוררים, כי שמך צורבת השפתיים כנשיקה צרה, אם אשכחך ירושלים אשר כולה זהב, ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושלום, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושלום, הלא לכל שירייך אני מסך הערפל, בוא נעמוד באור מתי נמשיך לברוח אל משחקים של כוח? מותר לך לבכות לפעמים כשמשהו נשבר בך בפנים. ספר לי קצת על רגעי הפחד. קל הרבה יותר לפחד ביחד. כשרוחות קרות תיזהרו בחוץ, אשלח בך אש חמה. יום אחד אולי תפסיק לרוץ בין הצללים בנשמה. מסך הערפל, בוא נעמוד באור ולא בצל. עד מתי נמשיך לברוח אל משחקים של כוח? מותר לך לראות לפעמים כשמשהו נפלא קורה בפנים. ספר לי קצת על רגעי האושר עד שיעלה עלינו הבוקר. כשרוחות קרות תיזהרו בחוץ, אשלח בך אש חמה. יום אחד אולי תפסיק לרוץ בין הצללים. כשרוחות קרות תיזהרו בחוץ, אשלח בך אש חמה. יום אחד אולי תפסיק לרוץ בין הצללים בנשמה. ספר לי קצת על רגעי האושר עד שיעלה עלינו הבוקר. קרות תיזהרו בחוץ, אשלח בך אש חמה. יום אחד אולי תפסיק לרוץ בין הצללים. כשרוחות קרות תיזהרו בחוץ, אשלח בך אש, אשלח בך, אשלח בך אש חמה. אשלח בך אש, אשלח בך, אשלח בך אש חמה. Avia. Do you want to stand and dance a little bit? Ken? Yalla. תביאו שניים, תביאו שלושה, תביאו 4 ילדים. תקבלו שיכונים, כניסה ומטבח ושני חדרים קטנים. תביאו 4 או 5, תביאו 6 ילדים. תקבלו הנאה וכבוד מקרובים, אתם אוהבים ילדים. ילדים. ולכם יש לב של זהב, כתוב בתורה, אולי בגמרא, לכו תשאלו את הרב. תביאו 6, תביאו 7, תביאו 8 ילדים. זאת הבדיחה, הארץ צריכה הרבה צעירים נחמדים. תביאו תבשר ולא מלוחי, תביאו 20 ילדים. אלוהים כבר ייתן את הסעד גם כן, מה שצריכים ילדים. אלוהים הוא גדול, קשה לו לסבור, שאחד יקבל את הכל, אז לאחד הוא נותן כסף, כוח וכיף, ולכן הוא נותן זה שמחה, ילדים זה ברכה, ולכם יש לב שכולו זהב, כתוב בתורה, אולי בגמרא, לכו תשאלו את הרע. אלוהים, אלוהים, ולכם יש לב של זהב, כתוב בתורה, אולי בגמרא, לכו תשאלו את הרב. תודה רבה, שבוע מקסים, אבי אבליה.
The one and only Rita, everyone. Give it up once more, and you will see her again on Monday night at the concert. My name is Joel Chasnoff. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. Get some sleep, because we have a huge day beginning bright and early tomorrow morning. Laila Tov, everyone. Thank you. Good night.